Welcome to the grand finale of our railway empire journey, where we're diving into a brand new scenario set in the heart of Switzerland. And guess what? We've finally got our hands on the sleek, cutting-edge electric trains. But hold on, before we get into the nitty-gritty, let me give you a taste of what's in store. This isn't just another map, it's an immersive experience. Picture this, the majestic Swiss Alps rising in the distance, sprawling green meadows, and rivers that carve through the landscape like nature's own railway tracks. The sheer beauty of this scenario is unmatched. Honestly, it's the best the game has to offer. The attention to detail is incredible, with bridges connecting city to city in a web of iron and steel, all against the backdrop of one of the most breathtaking landscapes you'll ever see in a game. Now here's the twist. Sometimes you just have to sit back, switch to view mode, and let the world unfold before your eyes. Trust me, there's something almost magical about watching your train snake through those mountain passes, over those bridges, with nothing but the sound of wheels on rails and the sight of verdant valleys beneath you. It's a moment to savour, one that truly captures the essence of what railway empire can deliver. Let's take a closer look. Maybe we'll hop on this train and see where it takes us. Let's hop into the driver's seat and take a look at this journey from my perspective. We're sitting in the cab of this powerful locomotive, and it's time to choose our train. I think this one looks promising. Let's take it for a spin. As we begin our journey, you'll notice we're approaching a station. What's fascinating about this route is that you're constantly navigating inclines and declines. There's hardly a flat stretch of track in sight. It really keeps you on your toes. To handle these steep grades, you need a locomotive with serious tractive power. Whether you're climbing uphill or coasting downhill, the terrain demands precision and strength. So, let's set our sights on a trip from Vaduz to Glarus. This route promises some stunning views and challenging terrain, making it a perfect showcase for what our train can do. So, we're on the train now, making our way up the steep inclines. I believe that's Lake Whalen off in the distance, though I haven't checked Google Maps to be sure. As we continue our ascent, the train steadily climbs, and you can really feel the engine's power as it pulls us up, up, up. As we pass by, we spot some familiar faces. Hello, my darling. How was Glarus these days? And then, we're greeted by the breathtaking sight of the mountains on the left. All the tracks here are fully electrified, which is a crucial aspect of the game that I'll explain more about later. Now, we're entering a tunnel. Let's see how it looks inside. You'll notice there are a lot of tunnels in this area, and building them is essential for navigating these challenging terrains. Inside the tunnel, the lights of the locomotive switch on, creating a cosy yet slightly eerie atmosphere. Oh, look! Another train just sped past us. That one's moving much faster than we are. It's the Loco Crocodile, one of the best freight carriers in the game. I'll delve into its capabilities later, but for now, just know it has more tractive power, which is why it's outpacing us. Our train, on the other hand, is a mixed-use locomotive designed to carry both goods and express passengers, though it's not as fast as the Crocodile. As we approach the station in Glarus, take a moment to admire the town as it was in 1921. You'll see how much soil had to be excavated to lay these tracks. Really quite impressive. Alright, let me show you the whole map, starting from this section. Here we have 3 key cities: Zurich, Winterthur, and Ruti. Zurich is our main moneymaker, the economic hub that drives the entire operation. Then there's Winterthur and Ruti, both crucial in supporting our network. We've also got Zug, which plays a vital role, and Lucerne further up, but you'll only unlock that area towards the end of the game. So for now, let's focus on Zurich, Winterthur, and Ruti. These are your 3 main cities. Zug is also essential because one of your first tasks is to connect these 3 stations together. In Zurich, I like to keep things organised by separating cargo and passenger services. So I split into 2. One station dedicated to cargo, and the other to passengers. It's almost like a math equation for me. Keeping the cargo and passengers separate ensures smoother operations. For example, in Zurich, I've got 22 trains dedicated to passenger services and 18 freight trains running on separate tracks. However, due to some expensive connections, I've had to merge a few freight trains with the passenger routes. So, I keep a close eye on my passenger trains to ensure everything runs efficiently. At the beginning of the game, there are 4 key resources you need: food, building materials, and the means to transport them. To kick things off, I start by investing in the grain farm at the Baumgart terminal, which provides me with wheat. Next, I set up the Nissan train station to handle milk shipments. Following that, I establish a station dedicated to sugar. All these resources are primarily routed to Zurich to ensure it gets the necessary supplies to drive the economy. As the game progresses and I start raking in some cash, I invest in the Barnholzer terminal, which supplies me with wood apart from Wood Farm near Zug. This terminal is much more convenient for transporting goods across routes. I also build a warehouse to store goods coming from the north, connecting it with the south. We've also introduced some new materials. Tin foil and Swiss knives, both derived from steel, are now part of our inventory. And in this expansion, we've got a new commodity: herbs. It seems that in Switzerland, they don't just rely on milk. Herbs are used to produce mountain juice. I don't know why, but it's a fun addition to the game. Of course, everyone loves Swiss cheese, so I set up a cheese factory in Zurich to support production. Even though I'm running at a loss of 70,000, it's worth it because everyone adores cheese. It's distributed across nearby cities, and at level 5, it's consumed rapidly. As you can see, we have 122 units of milk coming in regularly, and although we currently have 0 herbs, there are 24 carriages on the way. This is typical in the game, and you should expect to see these fluctuations often. Let me give you a closer look at my overall setup. I always start by building a maintenance facility and a post office. These are essential because the maintenance keeps my locomotives in top shape, and the post office boosts my revenue. Both are crucial for smooth operations and increased profits. As you can see, I have 6 trains running from the herb station to Zurich, but it still takes 93 days to complete the journey, despite a minimal waiting time of just 0.4 days. Even with the trains running at full speed, the round trip takes nearly 94 days. I also manage the delivery of herbs from our main warehouse, which stocks sugar, herbs, clothes, salt, and a new material: gravel. Gravel is one of the new materials introduced in the game. Although I've acquired one of these materials, I haven't focused heavily on it. Currently, the production of gravel is at Plovy 7, with a demand of 19. I own one of the 4 businesses related to this, but I haven't prioritized its development. The last factory I built was a chemicals plant, which is one of my favourites. We've also introduced pears as a new ingredient, replacing apples for producing liquor. Mountain cheese, a crucial Swiss staple, is used to make fondue. We first need to set up cheese factories to produce the mountain cheese, and fondue is consumed everywhere. Liquor, which is a family favourite, is made from sugar and pears, although it seems odd that herbs aren't included in the recipe. Overall, the flow of goods, cheese, fondue, liquor, plays a significant role in this game, reflecting the diverse and complex economy you'll manage. Let me show you the new setup and how things are progressing. For our latest product, we need 2 units of sugar and 4 pears to produce 4 units of liquor. Currently, my profit is at a loss of 70k, but that fluctuates based on pear supply. Overall, my balance is healthy. Today it's at plus 1.4 million, so these minor losses are manageable. We've introduced several new items in the game. For instance, we now have dried meat, produced from meat and salt. I've set up a dried meat factory in Glarus, benefiting from a nearby salt mine. To produce 10 packs of dried meat, you need 10 units of meat and 10 units of salt. The profit is around 20k per week, and dried meat is consumed widely. If you check the demand, you'll see that dried meat starts at 75k. The usual essentials like wheat, wood, meat, sugar and vegetables are in demand initially. Then you have the typical items like milk, pears and herbs. As the cities develop, they start needing clothes, fondue, liquor, salt, wooden pallets and dried meat. Let's find out how these sausages, which I think of as famous Swiss delicacies, are consumed. Let's check this one. Oh, Ava's is too big. It has over 100k. Okay, San Moritz doesn't have it, and neither does Davos. Let's go up. I have a small city there that isn't yet connected to the network. Let's check the flow of goods shortly. So we do have old items such as clay and chemicals and new ones like gravel, tin foil and watches. I haven't built watches yet, but I did construct a candy factory just to see how it looks. I didn't pursue gasoline and oil because they require innovation points, and I have better options for which to use them. Both oil and gasoline require 100 points. That's why I prefer electric locomotives. They're faster, cleaner, and more efficient than steam engines. In reality, they perform better because there are no trains stopping along the way and blocking traffic. There are many new features, so feel free to explore them. It's a shame that the Malak, the fastest express train, still steam-powered, so I opted out of it. The last train I unlocked was the green freight crocodile. I also tend to avoid spending innovation points on auctions or similar activities, as it doesn't make much sense to me. If you have the funds, it's better to just buy the whole business. If not, it's best to skip it. Now let's return to the company. I prefer using Idris K. Bailey, my hero CEO. Currently, I have 248 active lines, 455 trains in use, and 13 express trains, which is quite good, though there's room for improvement. Overall, my company is valued at around 621 million, and I've connected 2 million citizens. I'm not sure how this compares to historical Swiss railways, but that's the current state. My main expenditure was on track construction in Q3, where I spent nearly 10 million on building tall those bridges and tunnels. Additionally, a significant portion of my spending went into overhead line construction. Let's try to see how costly it is to build all these tunnels and bridges. So all these pink and red lines represent the construction costs you'll encounter. It's quite expensive. In average around 1 million to build just one section. Given that you start the scenario with only 3 million, this cost can add up quickly. I'm not sure how this compares to historical Swiss railways, but that's the current state. My main expenditure was on track construction in Q3, where I spent nearly 10 million on building tall those bridges and tunnels. Additionally, a significant portion of my spending went into overhead line construction. You'll likely spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to lay the tracks, especially with the current issue where you can't build two tunnels next to each other. It's puzzling why this hasn't been fixed yet, but the problem persists. Let's move on. I prefer to create a clean setup with straight lines, what you might call a German-style approach. However, this is usually something you can only achieve towards the end of the game, because it's very expensive to build straight lines. It took me almost an entire day to clear and set up the lines, so I spent a full day doing this and then redoing it. For example, with my grain farm, I built a dedicated line to supply Zurich from a nearby grain station. Even though production is at 162 with a demand of 130 per week, it's still not enough for Zurich. There are many grain farms in the area, which is a new experience for me with so many rural farms everywhere. From the Baumgart terminal, where we load grains, we have a freighter travelling at around 50 kilometers per hour. But The elevation rises from 0 to 867 meters, and it takes 16 days to reach Zurich, the closest destination. Imagine that it is the best freighter in the scenario, and there's no waiting time and no delays. We're currently facing a grain shortage. Only 8 are on the way, and we have none in stock right now. Let's see how many trains we have at the Baumgart terminal. 3 trains. That's a start, but we might need more. Let's try increasing the number to 4. However, increasing the number of trains has actually dropped the utilization rate to 8.8%, which is the lowest I've seen. Hopefully, this adjustment will help alleviate the food shortage in Zurich. I certainly don't want the Swiss to suffer from a lack of food. After all, what's Switzerland without its cheese and chocolates? Now we're aboard my green crocodile, cruising through the mountains on the right. I'm not entirely sure what these mountains are called. If anyone knows their name, drop it in the comments. While the views are stunning, our journey isn't breaking any speed records. The train is moving at a leisurely pace. But on the bright side, we've got 4 trains running, so we're making progress, even if it's a bit slow. Let's dive into the innovation side of things. I might be overlooking some new trains or upgrades that could be available. Let's see what new options we have, and if there are any upgrades we can make. The Metropolitan Vickers has a top speed of 112 km per hour, while the Crocodile tops out at 108 km per hour. However, with its impressive tractive power of 430%, the Crocodile unfortunately remains my best option. Here are my trains. The best ones are the passenger express routes, notably from Ruti to St. Pancras, Zurich St. Pancras, and Zurich to Winterthur. For instance, the Ruti St. Pancras route earns me 24,000 per voyage and operates at 60% capacity with a duration of nearly 24 days and 0 waiting time, as expected. Let's increase it to 4 trains and consider doing the same for the Zurich St. Pancras route. It's currently at 14%, but that's manageable. The Vaduz Chur route with 4 trains generates 71,000. And don't forget to add dining cars and a caboose. I include the caboose to keep my employees happier, though removing it wouldn't affect the profits. Still, it's a nice touch for the team. Let's revisit the company finances. Currently, I'm focusing on managing our bonds. At the beginning, I issued bonds to secure funds for development and to gain access to new areas. Remember that acquiring new areas becomes more expensive over time. I've since repaid all the bonds and even received a generous grant of 300 industry shares from a kind benefactor, which brought in an additional 300,000 in revenue. If you plan to buy and connect new stations, it's best to purchase the rural areas first and then build and connect the stations. This approach helps avoid unnecessary expenditures since prices rise exponentially. Otherwise, you'd end up spending all your money on tracks. For instance, building the tracks from Vaduz involves numerous tunnels and bridges, driving the cost up to around 2 million. To connect Vaduz, I've constructed a U-shaped route that extends out and then loops back to Appenzell. Once again, there are almost no flat surfaces. We're descending towards the station, and there's no tunnel here, otherwise you'd need to drill into the earth. In Appenzell, the cost to build the track is about 1.2 million, which is quite steep. Even now, I'd think twice before proceeding. Nevertheless, let's give it a try. Whether it's a bridge or a tunnel, the cost is around 1.6 million for just one line and its connection. Let's take a quick look at my warehouse at Newman train station. You can see that they're clearing out nearly everything and moving the goods. However, some trains are still waiting to be loaded. Let's check one thing and add a tick at one place to see what's going on. Notice the red lines indicating congestion. Trains are getting stuck. When we check the truck utilization, we see a lot of red lines, with some areas even hitting 100% utilization, like Konstanz. Schaffhausen is another city with issues, though it's one of the tasks we need to address. Despite the congestion, things are still moving forward. Let's toggle off the track utilization view for now. Let's move on to Lucerne. It's a lovely city. I've been there before. We have a tinfoil steel plant here, which makes sense given the availability of coal and ore needed for steel production. From the steel, we produce tin foil. Nearby, I also have grains and coal for meat production and milk. Essentially, the city is well stocked with supplies. There's plenty of sugar, and meat is produced locally. I skipped vegetables, but that's all right since we have an ample supply of milk and beer to keep things vibrant. Currently, I have 88 units of steel and 46 units of tin foil. I'll probably need to add more freight trains to manage the city's output. Don't forget to build essential infrastructure like immigration offices, libraries, and museums. Libraries can be constructed in cities with a population of 50,000, while museums and universities are crucial for city growth beyond 100,000. Remember, universities can be built once the population exceeds 90,000. As for auctions, I usually skip them. I don't need to buy anything since they can be traps. Always check your surroundings carefully, as I've ended up buying farms far from my main areas, leading to significant losses and being deep in the red. Now let's review the task list, which I've completed 100% in this scenario. The first major task involved the initial areas of Ruti, Zurich and Zug. One key objective was to build a single line and transport 80 wagons. To achieve this, you need to develop the cities to foster interaction and production. Otherwise, you'll likely fail. Make sure to invest in building if you have the funds. Money comes from passenger revenues and bonds. The other two tasks were relatively straightforward, constructing an electric line between Zurich and Winterthur and reaching a population of 60,000 in Zurich. These tasks are usually completed automatically as long as you ensure a steady supply of goods and efficient exchanges between the cities. The second task was to lead the charge, and it involved transporting 150 passengers from Vaduz to St. Gallen using an electric rail line. We are all in the all-electric. Let's say we are greens and eco-active guys, so it was fulfilled automatically. Don't forget, when connecting rural businesses, you'll likely complete Task 4, which involves connecting the rural network and ensuring production in your cities. However, there's a catch. You need to produce 24 mountain cheese rolls at St. Gallen, which requires setting up the necessary infrastructure. This is the tricky part, because you must connect all the rural areas to the city. Keep in mind that part of the region lies to the left, so you'll need to pass through Vaduz. Proper management of this setup will ensure substantial traffic flow in and out of the city. Near St. Gallen we have sugar, vegetables and milk at the Vault train station, key supplies you need to connect first. I have some herbs nearby, but I source my herbs from the upper farm, which supplies Zurich. The cheese produced there is sent to Vaduz to make fondue, which is then returned to the main regions for consumption. It's curious why fondue is so popular. I tried it twice and wasn't particularly impressed. The good news is that you'll need mountain cheese later in the game. What surprised me was discovering that the private owner in Appenzell had also set up a cheese factory, creating some competition with my own plant. I'm not sure why I built the cheese factory there. Perhaps it was due to some settings, but it seems Switzerland now has its very own cheese region. The next task, Sparking Revolution, follows the completion of previous objectives. The toughest part is delivering 20 loads of mountain cheese from the canton of St. Gallen, where it's produced, to the canton of Thurgau, a German-speaking part of Switzerland. This will be automatically accomplished if you set up a proper freight train from St. Gallen to Schaffhausen and ensure that Schaffhausen develops sufficiently to consume the cheese. The other challenge is reaching 200,000 citizens in the canton of St. Gallen. which will happen automatically with a well-set-up network connecting rural areas to the main cities in the St. Gallen region. Let's revisit Schaffhausen. It's the next area where you'll need to invest heavily to secure access, but by this point, you should have enough funds and the ability to issue bonds to cover the costs. Purchase the concession and focus on maintaining a good supply and demand balance to help the city grow from its small town beginnings. Don't forget to build essential structures like the immigration office, library, museum, and university. However, I encountered a challenge. Despite my efforts, the city's population has dropped below 108,000. Still, it serves as a hub for producing chemicals and paper rolls, which are then sent back to the main region of Zurich and the Zug. Moving on to the final tasks, edge electrification. The first part involved constructing electric rails, totaling 2,500 kilometres. This was completed automatically as I continued building and connecting the city's rail network. The new region introduced is the canton of Graubünden, which sounds quite German-like to me. It's located below the cities we've already built, to the left of Vaduz, starting from the city of Chur. The main task here was to transport 140 wagons with a single train from Chur, Ivers, and Davos. This turned out to be pretty routine, as it mainly required developing the cities sufficiently. Honestly, at this point, it was a bit monotonous. I was just laying down the lines and letting the system handle the rest, merely adding more freight trains between the cities. Let's check the Avis setup. We have the Just One Express heading to Chur with 100% utilization. Oops, I nearly forgot about this. Let's increase it to 5, 6, maybe even more. Let's go up to 7 or 8. Okay, but even then, utilization is still only 33%. Sorry about that, folks. I hope this adjustment will improve things. And come on, Davos, let's see you pick up the pace. Finally, reaching the required number of citizens was almost automatic for me. I barely had to lift a finger. The last task was delivering 22 loads of liquor from the canton of Graubünden to the canton of Thurgau. I set up the liquor factory in one of the cities as soon as I opened the region, since liquor is quite the usual thing and widely available in Switzerland. Keep in mind that it's a long haul from Davos, where the factory is located, all the way to Schaffhausen in the German-speaking part of Switzerland. Cities like Tüttenheim are much farther away, adding to the journey. This one will definitely take some time. As for Davos and region overall, well, it's not exactly a buzzing metropolis, aside from a few days each year when it magically comes alive for the World Economic Forum. The rest of the time, it's as quiet as a library in a snowstorm. I chose Davos to build this liquor factory because it's near the terminal with sugar and surrounded by rural farms, ensuring a steady food supply for the city's growth. And, oh, I almost forgot about Lanz. I set up the station there and then completely overlooked the city. Let's take a look. Hello, Lanz. I haven't actually visited you before, but you seem like a charming little town. The green crocodile is gliding by, showcasing the beautiful landscape and the crystal blue waters of the local lakes. Sorry for neglecting you, Lanz. You might need to build up your own factories to get things moving. To wrap things up, If you're aiming for bonus points and a top ranking, make sure to tackle the optional tasks. The easiest one was connecting 1.1 million citizens to the railway network, which I accomplished almost automatically by February 1920. Next, reaching 135,000 citizens in Zurich was also a breeze, achieved effortlessly by maintaining a stable food supply. Finally, producing 20 loads of mountain cheese was another straightforward task, completed by February 1920. For me, February 1920 marked the end of the game, with nearly all tasks checked off. The hardest and final task was transporting 360 passengers from Ruti to Chur via an electric line. Let me explain why this task is particularly challenging. Ruti is a major city with a population of 290,000, nearly at the top of the demand scale, fulfilling 65.8% of its needs. On the other hand, Chur is at the bottom of the list, with only 28 passengers in demand. This means you'll need a significant number of trains running between Chur and Ruti to meet the quota. So let me find this train. Where is it? I think I initially set up the necessary train service, but I had to cancel it shortly after as the demand was so low that it was causing financial losses. Currently, Chur has over 100,000 residents, but managing the train service effectively remains a challenge. Despite having a university and a well-developed goods and supply network with 70% fulfillment, Chur still struggles with passenger numbers, only reaching 100,000 residents. Even though the city produces cheese, clothes, and wood pallets, there's a glaring lack of train passengers. This imbalance makes it difficult to achieve the required passenger transport goals, as the demand simply isn't there despite the city's growth. Come on, guys. 0 passengers on the trains. Are you kidding me? Do my trains look too boring, or are they just not your style? Maybe the colours are a bit off. Next time, I'll try neon. Let's compare this with Zurich. Over there, we have 140 passengers heading to Winterthur, with 100% train utilisation and 100% for mail as well. Zurich, Ruti and Zug are all kind of doing great, yeah? And here, Ruti guys, you have a train every 3 hours and still 0 usage? Come on folks, it's 1921. It would be best if you were thrilled to have trains coming through so often. That 0% utilisation is really disappointing, especially when I've dispatched 29 trains and set up such a solid system, with express trains running between Zug, Zurich, Winterthur and Ruti. 4 trains on each route, covering 27 days with almost 0 waiting time. Come on people. But on the bright side, this setup has earned me nearly 3.8 million, so at least that's a win. So, it's pretty much all with my overall setup. I've got a few trains running in and out, though some seem to be stuck for reasons I can't quite pinpoint. Still, the system is churning out cash almost continuously. I've got 62 million in the bank, which isn't too shabby for 1921. Track utilisation is solid, hovering around 25–30% on main lines, though some routes could use more attention. There's a steady flow of goods coming in, and most are fully loaded. My passenger terminal at Zurich St. Pancras is almost empty, which is actually a good thing. Plenty of room to expand and add more trains. let's take a final look at my main station, Zurich. We do love you. You're looking great and stylish in what I'm sure is beautiful weather. There's a lovely lake nearby, though the city hasn't quite grown up to it yet. Hopefully, it will in the future. At the moment, only a few trains are coming in. So, let's embark on one last journey to Zurich aboard my trusty green crocodile. On the left, you'll see the Lake Zurich. So let us give a hearty blast of the horn to this magnificent Swiss landscape. Overall, I've enjoyed this expansion pack. It's been great to experience the new locomotives. One last tip: always remember to install overhead lines. As I'm currently building a track, you can see that the old lines we built previously don't have electricity, so electric locomotives can't use them. You'll need to add overhead lines so that electric trains can operate on these tracks. While there is a daily electricity charge, it's a minor expense. To save costs, it's better to add the overhead lines while building the track rather than retrofitting them later. Just click on L3 to add them automatically, which is cheaper and more efficient. So that's a wrap. If you enjoyed the journey, don't forget to like, subscribe and drop a comment. I'm here to help with any questions you might have. And as a final touch, let's cash out some bonuses for our team to spread a little happiness. After all, everyone deserves to feel good at the end of the day.